3, 2, 1. I'm Mark with the Oval RC, and today I'm going to show you guys how to build a Mudboss. The first thing you'll need is a Traxxas Slash two-wheel drive truck, and here I have a brand new Traxxas Slash two-wheel drive truck that I ran maybe one time for the unboxing video, if you guys check that out at all. You're going to need a Durotrax DTXC2617. I'll put that part number in the description below, but these are the extended body posts that you're going to need. You're also going to need a Traxxas 2735, and that's a front bumper. So we'll be taking off the front bumper on the Traxxas Slash, and we'll be putting on this bumper here. I also have some tubing that we'll be using, and we'll be cutting them down and putting shock limiters in our shocks. So I did buy a brand new Mudboss body. I got that off of eBay, and it comes in a nice package box and a sealed up plastic bag here. Has directions on the inside showing you how to put it together, and the pieces are cut and bent really nice also. And after we're all done putting that together, it will look like my buddy John's car right here. So let's get started, and I'll show you how to build a Mudboss. I'm going to try to do this as quick as possible for you. I'm not going to drag it out, so let's take the body off the truck. So we have the body off, and now we're going to remove the front bumper and the front body mount right here. So you're going to take your metric Allen wrench, you're going to go in the front of the bumper and remove the 2 screws in the front. You want to keep all the screws that you take out because we're going to be using for something else later on. Now you'll want to look underneath the bottom of the truck, and there is 4 screws right in the front there. We're going to take those out also. I got the 4 screws loosened up in the front bumper. We're going to take them out. Now you can take off the front bumper. We will not be using this. Let's set that aside. The next piece we'll be taking off is this oval looking piece right here that was holding on the front bumper, and that's held on by these 3 screws. We have the 3 screws loose. Pull those out. And you will want to keep your screws, set them aside, and this you will not need. The next bracket we'll be taking off is the bracket in between the 2 shocks here, and this bracket also has the body mounts attached to it. You'll take out these 2 screws that are on the underside of the bracket. So we have the screws loosened up here. We're going to take them out, set them aside. The bracket, you will not need this bracket, but we're going to take off these body braces right here, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with these here in a little bit. So now we got our shock tower brace removed. This is what it looks like with everything unbolted here and off the truck, and what it looks like up on the very front of the truck. Now we will be removing the right side rub rail, and we're going to be doing that by removing the 2 bolts right on the bottom there. We have our screws removed, and we're going to remove this rub rail on the right hand side. You're going to want to keep this for a spare because they are universal. It will fit on either the left or right hand side. And you take that off per the Mudboss rules, and so that way you can mount your body more to the left. Okay, now on the left side rub rail, we're going to flip over the truck, and we're going to take out the front bolt holding on the left side rub rail. So we took out these little screws out of the front of the rub rails. And what you want to do is look through your screws that we just took out, and you want to find the longer ones. Try to see what they look like right here. You want to use the longer screws. Grab 2 of those. You're going to flip your truck over, and we're going to screw 1 long screw in here and another long screw right on the other side. Screw them all the way in. Now that we got those screwed all the way through the chassis, 1 on the left and 1 on the right, just in the front, we're going to take the front body mounts and we're going to screw them down over those screws. Going to do it on each side. After they're screwed down, they're going to look exactly like this, and we're just going to use these front mounts here so when we set that brand new body down on top, if we have to drill any holes, we'll be able to line everything up really nice. It'll sit right down on those posts there, and on our back post, we'll be able to drill our body and set it in place. So this part here's done. Now let's put the bumper on the front. Now's when we use the Traxxas 2735, and I guess it's called a front bumper, but this is what it looks like, and this is what we're going to mount up front. So now you're going to look in your extra screws, and we'll find a slightly larger diameter screw with a button head on it. This could be that one right there. and we're going to mount the bumper right in these two holes in the front of the truck. And the bumper will mount facing downward. Looks like it's mounted upside down. You don't want to mount it up because the Mudboss body will lay down on the flat part of this, so you want to face this bumper downward. Now we'll go ahead and mount that up. This is what it looks like with our front bumper mounted on the truck. It's angling downward, and when we have our Mudboss body on, it'll be laying nice and flat on this front bumper. The front part is all done. Now we are going to remove both the shocks. We're going to take the bolts out right here and right here on each side, and we're going to take the shocks apart and install limiters inside the shocks. So we take a look at the truck before we take the shocks off, and we can see it's just riding way too high. So we want to lower the front end of the truck, and we'll be doing that by putting limiters inside the shocks, and then the truck will ride more like that. Now we're ready to remove the shock, and we'll remove this bolt right here. Careful unscrewing the top bolt. There is a little tiny washer sometimes mounted right on that shock mount. Careful removing the bottom of the shock. Sometimes the shock does fall below the mounting area there, and it can be a pain to get it back up through again. Pull the bolt out. Pull your shock out. We'll do the same on the other side. Remove the bolt on the top. Hold up on our shock. Remove the bolt on the bottom. Be able to lift the shock right out. Both the shocks are the same. So now we're going to go ahead and hold on to the bottom of the shock like that, and you're going to pull on this retainer. And then it will slide right off the shock like that. And you can slide the spring off, and you can remove the top spring retainer. Do the same with the other shock. Hold on to the bottom of the shock, pull back on the retainer. You'll be able to slide it off the shock, slide the spring off, and the top retainer. I'll be using the Team Associated Factory Team Shock Tool, and this clamps down on your shock shaft tight enough that you can remove the shock end. So hold tight on that, and we'll screw that off. And we'll do the same with the other shock. This tool is made of billet aluminum. It's really handy to use. Doesn't mark up your shock shafts at all. The next tool I'll be using is an RPM shock tool. Looks just like this. You'll slide that over the bottom of the shock. That locks right onto the hex part of the shock, and the top part looks like this. And this will go over the top of the shock, and then you'll be able to twist that and remove the cap. So you turn the cap off, we'll remove the tool, and then we'll go ahead and dump the oil out. You want to grab yourself a towel and empty out the shock oil, and then you can take the bottom of the shock shaft, push it up through the cylinder, and pull it out the top. Now I'll be using 3/16 diameter hard plastic tubing, and we're going to cut them 1/4 inch long. We'll be making 2 for the front. I used an X-Acto knife and cut my 2 pieces of hard plastic. That's what they look like. Now we'll grab the shock shaft. You slide the hard plastic 1/4 inch spacers right over that like that. And you're going to take your shock body. We're going to insert the shock shaft back into the body again. You may have to loosen up the bottom just a little bit for it to slide through a little bit easier. Careful pushing the top down. Slide it down. Just tighten up the bottom with a little bit of tension. We'll do the same for the other side. We'll push the shock shaft out. Slide our 1/4 inch spacer over the shock shaft. Grab the shock body. Slide the shaft back into the body of the shock. Slide it down. And we'll take our Lucas Oil Factory Team 40 weight oil, shock oil. It's silicone oil, it's special oil used for shocks. And we'll pour that into the tube. I'm going to fill that up. And then you'll work the shock shaft up and down real slow pushing the bubbles out. And you'll keep doing that until you stop seeing bubbles. Now that we're done pushing all the bubbles out, we can top off the shock just a little bit. That looks good there. Then we'll take our rubber cap that goes right underneath the cap of the shock. You want to pull back a little bit like that. Let it suck itself down into the body there. Sit real nice right on top of that shock body. Now we'll take our shock cap, screw it down over the shock body, being careful not to cross thread the threads. Use our tool to tighten the cap back up. We have the caps back on both the shocks. Now we can put our shocks back together and put them back on the car. First we'll install the shock end. When you're putting on the shock ends, running them up just against till they get snug, that's fine. You don't need to crank these down. Then we'll install the upper spring retainer, then the spring, and the bottom spring retainer. We'll slide that right over the shock shaft like that and onto the bottom part of the shock and release the spring and our shocks back together. We'll do the same for the other side. We can put our shocks back on the truck again. Now we'll tighten everything down on the shocks. So I got the shocks mounted up on the front. I have them mounted on the inner holes. I'm not going to get into the different positions right now. I use different size limiters, and I might use a different location in the hole for my setup. That'll be in a different video. Right now I'm just showing you guys how to build a Mudboss, and let's continue on. With the limiters in the shocks and the shocks in place, now we can see the ride height up front, and it does make a big difference on the truck. I don't run any limiters in my rear shocks. If you guys would like to, you can. You can run 1/4 inch limiters also in the rear. And now I'm going to take this antenna off, loosen this nut right at the bottom right here, slide the tube out carefully, and I'm just going to lay it down like that. And I'll later wire tie my antenna right there. Do not cut your antenna. If you have any excess, just roll it up and wire tie it fast. So what our truck looks like so far, and now it's time to get the body together and get the body mounted up on the truck. I opened up the bag with the Salvas Mudboss body inside, and the side panels were all ready to go, and they're already pre-drilled and bent. They're all set. We're going to set that off to the side and the right one off to the side. The roof also is pre-bent and pre-drilled. That looks like it's ready. The front piece, that's also bent and pre-drilled. We have the main decking, and we have this rear support. The instruction sheet does show what parts you will need to bend, and the rear support that you'll need to bend on the back and also on your front deck. So this here's the decking, and the instructions will show you that you need to make sure that this bend here is in place, so you will have to bend that over more. And you'll need to make sure that this tab is also bent over. I'll try to do a close-up on that. You'll need that tab right there bent, and make sure that this is in a 90, and you'll need to do the same thing on the other side. So when you're looking at the deck of the car, there's 2 holes in a line back here. This is the back, and there's 2 holes crossways up in the front. That's going to be the front of the car. The rolled edge is also going to show you that that is the front of the car. This back support piece right here, these tabs here did have to be bent. We did bend those on each side. You can look at the instructions that shows you how to do that. Also, we had to squeeze this closer together, and that's going to mount on the back decking just like this. That. So the first thing we'll do is we'll start mounting up the side, and then the back support, and then the other side. You will have a little small bag here, and that's filled with plastic hardware for your body. So go ahead and tighten up each of the plastic nuts. I'm going to give you a look at where I'm at right now. We have the rolled front edge on the decking, and we have our sides on. You can see how the curve curves toward the inside of the car. If we look down, see how it's mounted up, and also show you what it looks like on each of the sides. And then we'll put this support piece in, and it has the back lip at the rear of the car, and there's 6 holes already pre-drilled. We'll slide that in the back like that, and then we'll stick the bolts in. Looks kind of something like that, and I'll show you what it looks like after we have that bolted up. We have the rear support in place, these 6 bolts here in place. The support came up from underneath, and this lip is the back of the car. They're also bolted into the side. Now I'm going to do some close-up for you guys of how that looks. You'll see the tabs, the position. Take a look at the front. Take a look at the back, and right now you are looking at the left side of the car. If I turn it around, you can look at the front of the right side of the car and the back of the right side of the car. You can see how the tabs are, how they're bent down, this is bent down. And if we look at the top of the back of the car, we can see the 6 bolts that go down through, and this support comes in like that. Now we're ready to mount the front of the car, and that's a lot easier. All we got to do is send 2 bolts right down through the top, and this sits right on the top of the decking like that. We'll go ahead and bolt that down. I have the front now bolted in place. The bolts are down through. This piece is just sitting right on top of the decking, and that's folded down like that. And we will need to bend these tabs in once we are ready to mount it on the car. I'll take a close-up shot of that, and you guys can see how that's mounted up. Now we have our roof. Set this right on top. We have 4 bolts in the back. Send the bolts down through the top, nuts up from the bottom. And these sides right here will attach to the front, and on the inside, front left like that. We'll send the bolts through the outside and nuts on the inside. I'll show you what it looks like when I have it all mounted up. So I got the roof all mounted up. We got the 4 bolts on the top. Just send them right down through the top. And on the sides, push the support right to the inside there, put the bolts through the outside, and that's what it looks like. I'll do a quick close-up shot for you guys. You guys can see how it's all mounted up. And now I'll do a couple shots in case I miss anything. This way you guys can see how everything's mounted up. I'll show you the back again on this side. We'll show that. Another angle. And now we're ready to mount our body on our truck. I have 2 bodies here. This is a Salvas Mudboss body. And this is a homemade body. And I'm going to show you on the truck when we go to mount it. If you take the homemade body and you set it down over the truck, if you're making your own body and you'd like to drill your own holes, now you can easily see where to drill the holes for your body. You can line the body up. And we have those small, short body mounts in there. It's perfect for setting a body on top. That way you can mark your holes. You can mark your holes in the back and drill your holes, and your body will set right down on top of the truck. So now we'll take the Salvas Mudboss body. We'll set it right on top of the truck. The holes matched right up in the back. And it looks like they're going to match right up in the front. We'll go ahead and lift the body back off. And then we'll remove these short body posts. And then we're going to install the Durotrax extended body post. I took off the smaller body mounting post. And we want those longer bolts to stay in there that we put in earlier. And then you're going to grab your body mounting post, the extended ones. And if you stick a clip through it, you're going to turn them down on top of that bolt. And you're going to run them both down till they're tight. We have both the body post tightened down on top of the truck. And we also have these black spacers. You're going to set these down over top of the body post. This is going to limit how far your body sits down on the car. Set them about there for now. We'll set our body in place. We have our Salvas Mudboss body in place now. Fit perfectly down over top of our post. Fit perfectly down over the rear post. See what it looks like. Up front, we will need to bend these tabs out of the way so they don't hit our shocks. The front's laying really nice down against our tab. We will need to adjust those black spacers. I'll try to zoom in on that for you, but if you look at the black spacer right now, they're sitting a little low, so I'll have to raise the black spacer, tighten those up into place. So this is the battery that I'll be using in my Mudboss. Salvas Mudboss does have a ruling on their battery. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Our club requires that you use a 5200 mAh or less and a 50C or less on the battery. This is a 2-cell LiPo battery. On the end, I'm using the Dean's connector, and I'll also be soldering a Dean's connector on the end of my wires right here for my truck. I'm not going to get into that. Some of you guys are running Traxxas batteries. Some of you guys are using different connectors. This is the battery that I'll be using. So you guys will want to paint or even put a wrap on your body, and it'll look something like this when you're all done. And we'll mount it up onto our chassis. Pin it down. It'll look something like this. Then you guys are ready to start Mudboss racing. And so that's how you build a Mudboss. If you guys would like to learn more about these cars and how to set one up, all you have to do is just subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also join the Oval RC group on Facebook. I'm Mark with the Oval RC channel. See you on the next one.